Did you hit it?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mark's Backyard Birds, another live edition. How'd you like that intro video? We're pretty proud of that. We've been talking about it for a long time, and we finally had a young lady help us create that. And it definitely takes some through some very old pictures through time with my career. So I hope you like it. Like I said, it's 20 seconds long, and I hope people don't click away from videos because we're going to plan on putting that on to the first of the definite videos. So it looks like a lot of people are jumping in. Welcome in. Introduction while people get in here, and that is, of course, I'm Mark McKellar, a wildlife biologist from broadcasting from Kansas City, Missouri. Now a 33-year resident here, and with my wife, producer. She's going to wave at you because she's camera shy. Melanie's over here running the hard stuff, and we have been here, like I said, now 33 years. The first 31 years or so in North Carolina, and now out here, and we absolutely love the Midwest. And we tell you this, of course, because whenever we're talking about birds, I know you guys are joining in from all over, and so these questions will be coming in from different parts of the country. And like when I'm talking about migration, of course, that's going to be talking east to west, north to south. And so it helps to know where you are. So when you check in, please check in and let us know kind of your city and state. State's just fine. It gives us an idea who's watching, and we really do appreciate your participation because the channel's growing and we love it, and you guys are the reason why the channel is growing, and people are always asking how you can support us, watching, sharing the programs, giving us a like, thumbs up, believe it or not, just a comment. When you comment, that helps count toward my algorithm. And I was talking to a friend of mine who has a YouTube channel today. I don't know if Annette saw him tonight or not, but she has a new YouTube channel about quilting. And we were talking about how, just a simple wavy sign in the comments, it counts toward us, and it helps us. It helps the YouTube recognize us, and it helps the channel grow. So we appreciate your participation. And tonight, the main topic, like I said, we're going to be talking about migration. That's inspired by 2 emails that were sent to me requesting talk about migration, and they had several questions. So I kind of use that to outline the program tonight. So let's see who's joining in. Well, there's you guys have been on quickly here tonight. All right, Emerson in Arkansas, no Mississippi kites yet or hummingbirds in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Yeah, they're still coming. I've gotten some Arkansas sightings of hummingbirds. I've gotten, but not the Mississippi kites yet. Still a little early for them. I know we were down in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas birding many years ago. We were like the 3rd week of April, and we had hundreds and hundreds of Mississippi kites filtering through the Rio Grande Valley headed north. So I think we're still a couple weeks off, about 3 for the Mississippi kites to really start moving. So great birds. I'll absolutely love them. All right, Jan is down here in South Kansas City. Great welcome in. Hi, Sandy from Kankakee Hill, Illinois, a real regular contributor. Hi, Carol. She was on our bird hike today here in Jay. We got a great time. There she goes. Our hike this morning. We had a really good hike. And if you guys are members, if you are subscribed to the Facebook page, I've already posted the trip list from the day and some pictures of birds we saw on there today. I think we had 42 or 43 species, I think, by the time we tallied everything up, which is really good for this early in spring migration. So, yeah, thank you, Jay and Carol. Good birders, absolutely good birders. They help a lot on the hikes. and Maria from Morrison, Illinois. Welcome in. All right. Yeah, I love that you guys get to communicating back with each other. You guys have become friends. It's funny, over the time we've been doing this. Hi, Steve. Welcome in. Yep. Good. Oh, so Sophie is upstairs. Yes, but she's here. Reports coming in about 15 miles south. Good. Goldfinch is eating me. That's good because my goldfinch is really slowed up, and now today I had a few more back. So one problem I've got right now for me with the goldfinches, Steve, is the red-winged blackbirds are hoarding the medium sunflower chips, so they like the most. So out there in Tennessee, you got a lot. I know we'll have them, and I always talk about when you'll lose your goldfinches, at least for a little while, is when the first dandelion bloom occurs, because they love those seeds and they'll go out. So they'll be coming and going the rest of the spring for you there. All right. Boston guy from Massachusetts, of course. Welcome in. All right. Well, thank you. And I'm glad you liked it. The first time I used it was this past Monday night. Yeah, on the Yellow Rump Warbler video, and had some good comments on that. I made it in earlier on time. Yay! Hi, Reagan from Charlotte. You sent me an email today, didn't you? Thanks. Absolutely. Yep. I recognize that name. Hi, Bobby from Colorado. Another one of our regular visitors. Great photographer. Thank you for all the pictures you send to use. Absolutely. Hi, Lisa, Working Bulldog. Good evening. One of our followers from north of the border. Hi, Rick from North Carolina. Hope your chickens are remaining healthy. I had kind of contacted by one of the local TV stations that were considering doing a story on bird flu, and they were interested coming on. But I think I guess with all the stuff going on in the world right now,
and baseball season
just starting, they decided not to do the story. So. All right. Hello, Andrew from Cincinnati, another real dedicated follower. Welcome in. Hello, Keith from Houston. 2 weeks since I saw my first. I've yet to see a female. Yep, the males come in first. That's exactly what they should be doing, and setting up their territories, getting ready to dance for the ladies and try to attract one. Hi, Brian from across the river at Leavenworth. Again, on our hike this morning. He was a participant.
Your email is open.
My email is open. Oh, I don't want my email to be open because it keeps chiming.
Yeah.
Yes. The producer's taking over my mouse real quick. Okay. All right. Let's see who we have, and we'll get going here in just a second. Jolie from Chicago Burbs. My best friend used to live in the burbs of Chicago. Dusty High from Virginia Beach. That same guy also lived in Virginia Beach at one time. Yeah. Sophie decided to stay in her kennel, wanted to get in her kennel and eat some dinner and drink some water, so she's upstairs. Yeah. Derek from Illinois, welcome in. All right. Matt and Julie Wood from Massachusetts. Terrell Cockerman checking in. The Northern Mockingbird there.
Northern Michigan.
Oh, Michigan. Sorry. Oh, Northern Michigan. Hello, Kurt from right down the street here. He's really close. Kurt, hello from Red Hills of Georgia. Got a lot of clay down there, don't you? Yeah, Kurt and Carrie didn't make the hike this morning. They had a lot of stuff going on. They could not join us today. Oh. Hello, my daughter Morgan from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Hello, just down the street from the store. Yes, Carrie, there she is. 7 months down on the membership. Time goes by fast. I'm telling you.
That's awesome.
The dedicated, those memberships help. They help support the channel. Well, hello, Mary and Dylan Nemecek. You regular followers, Mary has been on with me before. A great friend of mine who has lots and lots of knowledge on birds, butterflies, native plants, all that. She's been a big help on the channel. All right, let's see. Carol, sorry, I hit that twice. Silver Springs, Maryland. Kansas City. Carrie's my store manager, and you guys know her. When you get packages from her, she writes the best little notes and stickers to go to you.
Lots of Illinoisans.
Yeah, the Illinois are showing up strong tonight. Joe from Long Island. Goldfinches are heating up out here. Creek Candy. Well, that's great. Yeah, you guys probably have some of our birds because our birds have thinned out, headed north. They've been down here for the winter. All right. Yeah, all of my regular customers saying hi to Carrie because they get their little notes from her on their packages when they order them, and she always sticks a little gift in there. And we really do appreciate the support. Remember, the sales of the backyardbirdcenter.com. Well, hello, Ellie. Welcome in. Another of my local people. The online store sales help keep us going and help us ensure that we can do these programs. So, well, okay. So the program for tonight is all about migration. There's a lot of misinformation out there about migration. There's a lot of beliefs, I tell the story that many years ago, I had to go on a morning station here gardening program here in Kansas City, because the guy swore up and down that his buddy shot a goose one time, and when he hit the ground, he went to pick it up. There was a hummingbird clutching to the back of the goose. So hummingbirds migrate on the backs of geese. Absolutely false. So I had to go on there as a wildlife biologist and tell the host and his listeners as to why that wasn't true for many, many different reasons. But it is an old wives' tale that's been around for years and years. I've been asked that so many times in the last 40 years, I couldn't even begin to tell you. So tonight, I'm going to try to give you facts about migration and what different kinds of migration there are. And I got a whole list of questions that were asked, things like how high do they fly and how do they see where they're going? Do they migrate at night or the day, etc. So we're going to cover that in migration talk here. So first off, there's two different basic types of migration, and that is birds that basically have to migrate, and they do it by instinct, and they do it every year. What is the definition of migration? Well, in college, the answer on our final exam was that we had to write it out, is migration is a patterned movement to feed or breed. So that is short and simple. That is the best way to describe it. But the two different kinds of migration, they're called obligate and facilitative migration. So one is birds that have to do it, and they do it. There's the reason they have, and there's those that do it only when it's absolutely necessary, because migration is very, very dangerous. So what are examples of one that, let me see, pull this up here, that they have to do it every year. And it's probably one of the best examples that we can think of in our backyards. I mean, the dark-eyed juncos are so famous for being here in the winter, but not here in the summer. It is far south. And these birds do it every year. They migrate thousands of miles, and they end up in the same backyard every year, or really, really close to that. And they probably nest within 30 feet of where they nested the year before. They're absolutely amazing. And the story I tell about the dark-eyed junco is when I was bird banding here, when I first got to Missouri, my bird bander that I worked with, she had banded a dark-eyed junco in the backyard of the Nature Center in Blue Springs, Missouri, 11 years before this report. And when a bird is found dead that has the ring, as the British call it, or the bird band around its leg, and that person takes that band off, tapes it to a postcard, writes the date of the location, the name and the contact information for the person who found it, basically where it was, and they send it to Bird Band USA. And whenever they receive it and they find all the data, they accumulate all the data they can on that bird, and then they send that information back to the person who found it, and they send that information to the bird bander. Well, Marguerite got one of those confirmations that one of her birds had been killed, and so it told them, they know that one thing, the bird was at least 11 years old because she banded it 11 years ago. And at that point, it was considered an adult. And so it was over 11 years old. She had caught that bird twice or three times in the last 11 years in the same backyard of the Nature Center and Blue Springs. This one was found dead 11 years after she originally banded it. And it hit a window at a house 100 miles north of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So we know that this little tiny bird that weighs just a handful of paper clips in your hand was making this journey every year to somewhere over 100 miles north of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, to this backyard in Blue Springs, Missouri, for 11 years, back and forth. Now, we've learned a lot about migration and about how birds navigate and when they did, and we'll talk about some of that. But how they find that exact backyard every year, how they find that little patch of ground that they nested in every year, it's still a mystery. We don't know exactly how they do it. There's lots of theories out there, but it's truly amazing that they can do this. So the dark-eyed Junco, and, you think of ruby-throated hummingbirds. We think of Baltimore Orioles, birds that we know in our backyard every year. They have to migrate. Why? The Magnolia Warbler is an example. Well, why do this obligate migration? Why do they have to migrate? Well, their bodies tell them to. So, and the reason that these birds do, now, the magnolia is an insect-dependent bird. Now, it can eat some berries in the fall and things, but it mainly eats insects. So there are no insects available to it in this breeding grounds up in, put up the range map, way up here in Canada and the northern tier states and the boreal forest up here and the northern North America. And in the winter, there are no insects. So for it to have insects available to it, it migrates south, and it's considered a long distance migrant because you can see that it winters as far south as right at the tip of northern South America, and they spend the winters down there, and they spend the winters in things like shade grown coffee plantations, very, very important places. In the Caribbean islands, they winter all through there, but there are insects all year long down there. But they return to their nesting grounds every year. And the question invariably gets asked, why don't they just stay down there where there are insects all winter long? And it's so funny because we think of these birds, I saw it written in one of the things I was reading, and that we consider them our birds. Obviously they're our birds, but the truth is they spend a lot less time up here than they do down there because the breeding season is pretty short, and as soon as they raise their young, then they head back out. They head back south again. Well, the reason they don't stay down there in the rainforest and nest is it's simply because is as rich an environment as the rainforest is, it cannot or it could not sustain the pressure of all the birds that live there, do stay there all year long and have to raise babies and have to have insects and have to have the fruit that they need and everything from there. You add the pressure of all those birds that migrate and nest up north to that, and it would be too much, even for the rainforest. Well, the other part of it is these birds have evolved to time their nesting with their perfect food. They are some of these warblers, especially, they time their nest whenever a certain budworm every year erupts. Whenever the buds start opening on plants and the worms, caterpillars hatch and they're attacking those, and it provides all this food. And for that bird to raise 5 hungry mouths or 4 hungry mouths, it needs a lot of food, and it needs a lot of those caterpillars and things to feed their babies. And remember, the insects are the source of calcium for growing baby bird bones. So depending upon what kind of bird you are, you usually have a specialization, especially during the nesting season, for a certain type of insect. So things like, the Magnolia warblers will nest in a certain kind of tree, and the yellow rump warbler will be right there in the same forest, but it'll be nesting either lower in the tree where a different type of insects hatches, or in a different tree in the same forest, because we call it partitioning of the resource. They specialize into certain feeding areas and those certain insects, and they count on them every year. So one thing that ties into this, and the question that's on this over here, is how do they know when to leave? How do they know when to start their migration north? How do they know when to start their migration south? And so much in the bird world, it says it is a lot, and wildlife in particular, it's about day length. The shortening of daylight hours, the lengthening of daylight hours trigger these instincts. These birds have been doing this forever. They're a millennium, and they have their migration routes that they have been following for ever, and they follow the same ones, and that leads, of course, to the question of how do they migrate, when do they migrate, all those. Well, most songbirds, the birds that we have in our backyard that we lose and we gain, the hummingbirds, the orioles, the tanagers, those guys, almost all migrate at night. Hummingbirds are an exception. They mainly migrate a lot during the day. But how do they navigate? Can they? The question here was, can they see in the dark? I mean, are they? Well, no. Most of these birds cannot see very well in the dark. So how do they navigate? And we know that they navigate by the stars. They have little metal shavings in their bills that helps them orient to the magnetic poles and migrate that way. And they count. We have so many collisions with birds and radio towers and buildings and things like that, because they don't have nocturnal vision. They're not seeing things very well, and bright lights it can hurt them. They'll head for the bright lights, and wham, they'll hit a radio tower, or wham, they'll hit a skyrise building in a city. And that's why I've talked about it several times about the lights out program, turning out your lights during migration is so important at night. And there's a lot of groups that work in cities to work with skyscraper owners and stuff to, at least during peak migration, to turn their lights off in the skyscrapers at night and things. It is a very, very dangerous migration. So it has to be worth it for them to make that migration and to continue to make that migration every year so they can have enough babies so the population keeps going. So that is what we consider obligate migration, and that is they have to do it because of food resources, because of the prime food for their babies, reproduction, and they've been doing it forever, and they instinctively follow these routes. And one of the books that I was going to show you, the book I wanted to show you is, let's pull this up, hold on. This is Scott Weidensaul is an author out in Pennsylvania, and I had him as a guest speaker at our Audubon Society of Western Pennsylvania meeting. Burroughs Audubon here in Kansas City had him speaking a couple of years ago on Project Snowstorm, Snowy Owls. But this book is Living on the Wind, and I've got an autographed copy. This book had just come out in about 99, I think, or so. And this is an incredible amount of information on migration. And if you want to really delve much deeper into the topic of migration, I highly recommend this thing. I'll get Melanie to put a link up, or she'll put up the title and everything for you to be able to look it up. So I definitely, it's a fascinating topic. Well, the other type of migration, we talked about obligate. Sorry, I grabbed the wrong picture. This is the one it's supposed to be. Okay, one that we're very familiar in our backyards. It is an example of facultative. I have a time getting that word out. And these are examples of birds. And we think of our eruptive species. And so in the in the fall, when we're talking about the winter bird feeding season, we're always talking about, or the purple finches are going to come down this year, or the pine siskins going to come down this year, or the red poles going to come down this year. Many of those winter finches. Well, these are birds. Now, remember, with the Junco, they live up in that same type of environment. But the Junco's life is spent on the ground, which gets covered completely in snow and ice, and they couldn't survive up there. Unless it was very mild, there's a lot of open patches. So they come down here instinctively every year to where they know there's going to be open ground, and so they can find food. Well, pine siskins feed up in the trees, which don't get covered in snow and ice as bad. So they can still find their seeds that they're eating, their pine seeds and a lot of the conifer seeds that they feed on in winter. Well, they come down in big numbers in years in which those food sources don't do very well. It may be because of a drought up in that area. It may be just a natural cycle for that group of trees to not produce a lot of seeds. And so they have to do come down. And so they don't do this every year. And they move south until they find feeders. And I've talked about birds like evening grosbeaks that we used to get every winter down here for years and years and years, many years. Well, they don't come down anymore because they get intercepted because there's far more people now feeding birds in the northern tier states and in southern Canada. And so they intercept the evening grosbeaks. So why fly any further south than you have to? We're talking about how dangerous the journey is. And so they come down and they find a good feeder station in northern Minnesota, and they never make it to Missouri anymore. So pine siskins, same thing. Now the population is much stronger of pine siskins than it is of evening grosbeaks. So there's a lot more siskins to move down in the years they need to because of the seed failure crops. So they come down in good numbers. In some years, it may be 3 years in a row we don't see pine siskins at all in our area, or maybe just a few. So this is an example of a bird that only does that long migration when it needs to. And then there's an interesting one that I wanted to put in here, and that is those birds that don't migrate very far. But they do pretty much do it every year. This is a Clark's Nutcracker, and the Clark's Nutcracker is a hoot, and its migration is just down the mountain a ways. So from higher elevation to lower elevation. But again, any pattern movement to breed or feed, and that's what this does. He goes down just down the mountain, and then in the spring goes right back up to its nesting territory. So we have those birds that we're talking about that will travel hundreds and thousands of miles versus this really short migrator. So let's see, let me go here. When we talked, I said most birds migrate, and songbirds migrate at night, but not all of them. And also birds like waterfowl. This is a skein, as they call it, a snow geese, and they travel just a week or two ago up at Los Bluffs here on the way north, and there were about 1 million of these on the refuge just north of Kansas City. Snow geese and other waterfowl primarily migrate during the day because they don't migrate they don't navigate by the stars. They don't navigate by the time of day, etc. They migrate generally by geological features like rivers, and that's why their flyways are mainly majority of them they follow that major geologic formations like mountain ranges and rivers, and so they're migrating during the day, and they're following these, and there's tons of them. It's just they come in, and they're great examples of a different style of migration than songbirds who migrate mostly at night. Now, one of the things that gets brought up a lot is who are the big migrators? How far do they travel? Well, this little bird right here, this is an American golden plover, and the American golden plover is truly one of the champion migrators. They are small shorebirds, but they nest up at the top of the world, and they spend their winters at the bottom of the world. So this is their range map. You can see this is where they nest up in very northern North America, Alaska, across there. And down here in the blue at the very bottom, in the open grasslands of Brazil, is where they go to winter. my goodness, folks, that is a many 1,000-mile trip. Let's see. I had it written down, I think, of the total mileage on it. I don't have it here in front. I don't have it right here in front of me. But you can tell that's
this right here. You got it?
Nope, that's the other one. Okay, I'm going to get to that one next.
Sorry.
But it isn't the champion migrator. Now, that for its size and the distance it travels is truly amazing. But the champion of all migrators is this guy. This is an Arctic tern. Now, the Arctic tern in 1 year travels 49,700 miles. That is enough to circle the planet twice in a year. And they fly from their nesting grounds, and I'll pull this map up again because the other map wasn't great, but they nest similarly up there at the top of the world, and it's very in some of the, I've seen them on the islands off of Maine with the puffins. They nest up there at the top of the world. Well, when they migrate, they make this giant figure eight, and that is they travel over the ocean almost the entire way, but they go down to the southern tip of Africa in the winter, and then they make their way back up, and it's like a big giant figure eight that they fly, and they are the champions of migration. So it's amazing, and again, it's an amazing topic that you can get into heavily. Now people ask, one of the questions that was on here is how high do they fly? Well, a bird like an Arctic tern doesn't migrate that high. It is oceanic and over the ocean. But some of the geese that migrate during the day, they've had airplane pilots, commercial airplane pilots, witness some see them migrating as high as 23,000 feet in the air, and that's far contrast to a hummingbird that migrates about 4 feet off the ground or 5 feet off the ground. So it is such a wide variety. It's so hard to answer that question, like how high do they migrate? Some are very high and some are not very high. And then how can they do that? They have to use the wind. They have to learn to not flap their wings as all the time because they would run out of energy. Some of these birds have to flap their wings all the time. Some of them, like hummingbirds, when they make their jump across the Gulf of Mexico, they double their body weight. And then whenever they land on the other side, they're less than what their original weight was. So imagine yourself doubling your body weight, eating enough to do that. And then after flying that long and no stopping whatsoever, you've lost all that body mass down to less than what you originally weighed when you started fattening up. So they have to have fat reserves. They have to take advantage of it. Now, the oceanic birds like Arctic terns, they eat on the way. They eat fish from the ocean, and those fish, a lot of those, and shrimp, like the shrimp have a lot of wax in them, and they can actually store that wax and then help break. They have enzymes to break it down, like I talked about the yellow rump on Monday night, and they get energy from that wax that lasts them a while internally, which is pretty crazy. So there's all kind of adaptations for birds to adjust to this lifestyle, this long migration. So, all right. One was asked, how do they, what I thought was an interesting question was, how do they communicate, and how do they pick a flock to migrate with? Well, a lot of that has to do with wind patterns, because you cannot fly against the wind if you're a small, lightweight bird. So their migration is greatly dependent, and you'll hear me talk a lot about it with the spring, with the hummingbirds coming and the orioles coming. Whenever the winds shift out of the south this time of year, it brings new birds in because they can't fly against that wind, especially a strong north wind. They have to wait for winds to become favorable. So the same thing with oceanic birds and things like that. They learn to ride these prevailing wind currents and take advantage of to save some energy. So as far as a flock to join in with, I think it truly is, oh, you guys got this wind too, and there's lots of mixed flocks of birds migrating together. And one of the neat sciences that are out there right now is studying night calls because the birds are communicating and doing call notes and things whenever they're flying. And our friend Marky Bird Girl, who you've seen her pictures and heard me talk about her if you're a long time listener, she studies those. And she puts this parabolic dish up at night and during migration, and she records the sounds of these birds going in. And then she goes back and identifies them. There were 17 wood thrushes flew over last night. There were 125 rusted grosbeaks and so forth and so on. It's fascinating to be able to do that. And these birds are flying over you at night and you just don't know it. I mean, while you're sleeping, birds are migrating overhead every night this time of year, especially. And then, of course, the weather radar things that we've talked about, and the bird cast. And it shows those huge flights. They can document them on weather radar and stuff. So just another fascinating topic. The another question was, why do they migrate at night? Why do songbirds migrate at night if it's so dangerous? Well, and it is dangerous, but cooler temperatures at night. So when you're expending that energy, you're beating your wings and you're flying, you're having danger of overheating if it were a hot direct sunlight on you. So part of it is temperature. They definitely it's safer for them that way. And the other thing is there's fewer predators. A Cooper's hawk is not going to catch you at midnight when you're migrating. It doesn't have nocturnal vision, and so there are reasons why they do it. I mean, nature doesn't do anything by accident, as they say. So, wow. Let's see, what is it? Oh, I talked about. I didn't have a picture of this bird, but one of the champion migrators is a bird called a bar-tailed godwit, and it's known to fly 7,000 miles without stopping. That is one jaunt, 7,000 miles. So it's migration is such a fascinating topic, and it's endless, and there's a whole lot more information. And I encourage you, like I said, Scott's book, it's worth a deep dive if you love birds and you want to learn more about them. So
and the link to Scott's book to Amazon.
Okay,
it's in here.
Yep, we'll get to it. All right, I'm sorry. And migration, a fascinating topic. And now we're going to go to the questions and the comments.
So Ellie was the last thing.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't know where she's at. It's here we go.
Here we go.
That's just talking to each other.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Oh.
All right. So what's going on in your backyard? You definitely need to have your questions ready, and that includes backyard stuff. 4 eggs at the bluebird nest, house finches and chickadees hard at work on their nest. Yeah, you said that you guys have a house finch using one of the roosting pockets, you said, which is really interesting. They don't typically, I think that's a really good example of how house finches typically don't use like a 1.5 inch diameter hole type box. It's not unheard of. They will, but they typically, where those roosting pockets have larger openings, I think that's preferred by house finches. So you've got them working there. All right, let's see. Red-winged blackbirds are crazy right now. Yes. I'm telling you, right now is a tough time to get through bird feeding because the blackbirds invade and they take over, and it's tough. And then I had several people say, "Yep, I've made my switch to safflower," because the only way you can kind of deal with them if you're trying to feed is during this period. Now it doesn't last super long, but if you want to discourage them, safflower certainly is an answer. And cage feeders. Unit 10. I thought I was watching. Well. Turkey vultures were flying very high when I used the binoculars. Well, they were golden eagles. Wow. A golden eagle is a good bird, especially in Georgia. Yeah, absolutely. But they turn up on the Outer Banks of North Carolina when I was there bird watching. So, yeah, a golden eagle is a great bird. Rick, no bird flew in the is on the downward flight. Yep, 3 nesting bluebirds with females sitting on one chickadee and 1 chickadee. Excellent. 0 sparrows. Bravo. Fight the good fight against those sparrows. Sandy still has Juncos, and my monthly email, I don't know if you guys subscribe to that, but I've written that and it's going out this weekend. I talk about this being the time of year, Sandy, that you can have Juncos in your yards and hummingbirds in your yards the same day. They don't overlap very long in the spring and in the fall, but this here in the next couple of weeks is when that can happen. All right. Still have a few Juncos hanging out in the backyard in Eastern Mass. Well, yeah, I know it. I love the Juncos too. I've had it. I saw them out there today. Still have Juncos with chipping sparrows have shown up. There you go. We had our first chipping sparrow on the hike today. I know Kurt and Carrie had one in their yard a couple of days ago, but I saw my first turkey vulture over the house yesterday. And then today we had like 50 of them. They were truly migrating early in the day today over the lake. So where we were, I've never had seen a banded bird in my area. Yeah. What about you? Okay. Yep. Absolutely. Banded birds are very hard to see just because you usually don't get a lot of good looks at their legs. I know Mary sent me pictures of a ring-billed gull with leg bands that she found at Smithville Lake one time. It was loafing on the roof of a building, and she got pictures of the band, and they were able to identify it. And then I know it's shorebirds and things have been found at certain areas. It really takes a keen eye to pick out a band on a bird like that. I really enjoyed the Juncos. They are adorable. I love them. This is great. Sparrow's amazing. Yep, absolutely. Juncos too. Probably 20. That's a good number. Lights out. Very important, folks. Coming up. I've seen tree swallows here in Illinois early spring. Yes. Yeah, today was the first two we've seen. I heard they were at that lake a couple of days ago. Somebody else had said they had them. But the tree swallows are the first swallows to show up. Well, technically, sorry, because purple martins do tend to show up a little earlier than that, and they are swallows. Hi. I love it. Yeah. Rhonda from Harrow, Ontario, Canada. Welcome, Rhonda. All right. Friendly reminder, please hit that like. Thank you, Steve. Help the channel. Oh, absolutely. The birds, thank you. Yep. Guys, it's overwhelming the number of people who are sending me emails now saying, they've learned this from the channel, and they bought the bluebird box, the heated bird bath, different things that we talk about regularly, and saying, oh, this is the best thing I've ever done. I can't believe how much I've learned, and I really, really appreciate that because it makes me know that I'm doing the right thing, and people are getting the message and taking advice. I love it. Pine Siskins last spring for the first time. Really enjoyed it, especially. Derek, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people think that only Pine Siskins they think of only in the winter, and if they don't have them in the winter, you don't get to see them again. Well, really, one of the best times to see Pine Siskins is in spring migration, because you'll have a certain amount of birds that passed over you and wintered in, say, the pine forest of Arkansas and East Texas. And all of a sudden in the spring, we'll say, oh, wait a minute. Oh, there's pine siskins on my bird feeder. And just for a couple of days. And these are birds that wintered much further south and are moving north. So that's a really good example of when you do get a chance to see those pine siskins.
That's a link to the book.
Oh, there's a link to the Scott's book if you're interested in that. Yep. Great book. I'm sitting in my backyard now watching pine siskins here in Western Washington. Yeah, you guys out west, you guys have much more regular pine siskin activity than we do. I love that. Zzz! I've never seen it or even heard of a Clark's Nutcracker. Do we know who was the Clark's Nutcracker named after? Whenever Lewis and Clark went on their expedition, they agreed to only name one animal new animal they found after themselves. And William Clark chose the Clark's Nutcracker because he thought it was a woodpecker. And Meriwether Lewis chose the Lewis's woodpecker. Beautiful green and pink woodpecker out there. Yep. Williams. If you go to Colorado, you go to the Rocky Mountains, and you go up in elevation, you have a good chance of finding Clark's Nutcrackers. Great birds. It's amazing how these birds do this. Absolutely, it is fascinating, Carrie. Are birds who don't migrate more adaptable to various environments and food sources? Curtis said, "Yeah, Boston got that." There are trade-offs, and in the world who migrate versus don't migrate. The reward, I've talked about this many times, the reward for not migrating is that you get the first shot at the prime habitat for nesting. And you also get the benefit of probably getting in, multiple nests in the nesting season versus a migrant, a neotropic migrant especially, who come back. Most of them only nest once a season, some twice, but they get in, they have time to build their nest. Orioles are prime examples of this, right? They build a nest, lay their eggs, incubate, hatch the babies, feed them, boom, and they're gone. They headed back to the rainforest. And so now, cardinals don't have to deal with that. So they can have 3 and 4 nests in the season. Bluebird's a great example of that. But it is all about taking that risk. If you have a super severe winter, of course, you risk dying. And we talk about how important bird feeders and heated bird baths are in these really severe winters for these resident birds to survive. That's a good point. I mean, I live near a body of water that's a stopover for geese, and I'll see a lone goose honking and flying. Probably, I don't know for sure it would be a lost bird, or it lost its mate, or it never had one. Maybe it's a young bird that hasn't attracted, and they are constantly advertising for a partner. And the bonds in geese are very strong, but when one dies, if the female dies, the male's going to keep looking for another mate, and vice versa. So my guess is one of those situations is a very young bird who hasn't paired yet, or it may be an adult bird that lost its mate and it's trying to find a new one. Did you? Yeah. Strong winds make a huge impact on migration. Yeah.
I think it was 78 here today.
It was 78 here today, Andrew, for opening day for the Royals today. And it was amazing. We were out birding early, and it was very nice this morning. Actually kind of cool this morning. Boy, you knew when that front pushed through about noon or after, all of a sudden the air got a lot muggier and it warmed up really, really fast. It shot up right about 80. So, yeah, I think that front's coming to you. All right. What boggles my mind is the ruby babies migrating after. Yeah, that's right. And that. No, they don't. They typically don't. Ruby throats are a great example of a bird that, instincts take over. Like I said, those adult males leave first. The adult females leave second. And the juvenile ruby throats hang around. They don't want to leave. I mean, they're like, what in the world? I was born here. I want to stay here. I'm getting good food from the flowers and the bird feeders. But then those day lengths shorten. They start shortening, and their bodies start pulling them. That instinct that they, and they eventually they have to give in. The winds push out of the north really strong, and they go, okay, here we go, and they take off. And they fly about 100 to 150 miles, and then they'll drop out and have to refuel in a couple of days, and then they keep going. They hop, skipping, and jumping. And so different birds, birds migrate between 15 to 55 miles per hour. And you multiply that out by the hours that they're migrating. That's a pretty good distance you can put with you for each day, but they have to refuel. And one of the questions that I was also asked in this list of questions was, what can we do to help migrating birds? Well, my message is food, water, and shelter, right? Having food available, but mostly they're going to be eating insects. But water is critical. And also, this is when we talked about the heated bird baths all winter, and in the spring and the summer, I talk about moving water. And that is bubblers and fountains and misters that blow water up into the air. And because of that gurgling sound, that splashing of the sound, the rippling effect, that catches birds' eyes, and it also catches their ears. And so these birds that migrated all night and they land, they don't know where water is. They don't know where food is. This is totally new territory for them. And so having those sources available for them to find is really, really important. So, a lot of people that switch out the electricity, the electric cord, they take their heater in for the spring and summer, they plug in a bubbler in their bird bath so that it does create sound to attract these migrating birds. So like the rippling effect, great great, absolutely great for those migrating birds to be able to see it. And also remember, the rippling water disturbing the surface keeps the mosquitoes from being able to lay their eggs on there. So that's one of the great things. But number one, the thing that kills most birds is loss of habitat. They fly these traditional routes, and when they land, forest has been clear cut. And the prime example is birds that have to cross the Gulf, and they're so exhausted whenever they reach the shore, and all of a sudden there's condominiums right where a forest used to be that they would land in. And so I was please support organizations that preserve land. The Nature Conservancy is a prime example, but your local land trust. Protecting these spots of green space is so important for these migrating birds to be able to find some bugs, to find some clean water, and then so they can keep on their journey. The greater the distance between these, the more birds are going to die. So those are some of the things that you can do. Again, don't clear out your underbrush. Make sure you keep shrubs, and people call it that snaky stuff. No, that snaky stuff is where most birds live, and the most birds need. And a lot of that snaky stuff, looking stuff, it produces caterpillars for these birds. And most of these birds, that's what they need when they land. They've got to have that source of food. So that's how you help migrating birds. And the orioles and the grape jelly trick and all, and we know that. Well, we know grape jelly isn't great for them, but it's an instant food source, and it helps to give them energy to hunt the other foods too. So mealworms and other great, refueling. That's what they have to have. All right.
You just did that one. So hello to Marianne.
Or a hello, Marianne Bell. That's another regular, a great contributor on the Mark's Backyard community page. If you're not a member, definitely do that. There you go. Nutrisaffin safflower helps. It definitely helps. And cage feeders, another thing that keeps the big blackbirds out, and of course the squirrels too. Yep. Juncos are starting to pull out, and of course we'll have them passing through from the ones that winters out, and the chipping sparrows just showing up. Absolutely. I still have Juncos and white crowns here in southern Ontario. Lisa, I wonder how. I bet there's some that nest pretty darn close to you too. So I bet not far from your area, you have nesting populations of at least the Juncos for sure.
It's a good question. She wants to know about how to share pictures with us, so they email them to you.
If you don't want to use Facebook or Instagram,
but they don't use Facebook or Instagram, so they can email you.
Oh, you can email them directly to me, and that remember all this contact information is in the description below the video once we get off tonight. But my email addresses are in there, and Mark at backyardbirdcenter.com or marksbackyardbirds.com. There's multiple ways, but if you want to send the pictures to me, those are very, very helpful for doing the videos and programs, but also sharing. Like today when I shared the pictures of the birds on the hike, we didn't really have any pictures taken on the hike today, but I used birds that have been submitted to me over the years as examples of ones that were there. So, yep, Eastern Phoebe was we saw one today as well, Kurt. Yep, they're an early migrator. Yep, they get noisy now. Saw my first swallowtail kite in Georgia. Oh, jealous. One of my favorite birds. Swallowtail kites are gorgeous. Congratulations. I love it. What's my favorite songbird? Well, it's funny because it's one of the least musical songbirds in the world. Right above my head, that guy right over here, that one, that gray and white and black bird's called a loggerhead shrike. And I love that bird. I've been in love with it since college. It's one of the most unique birds in the world. Its hunting style and things. But I have a lot of them. I have, wood thrushes, I think, have the most beautiful song of all the songbirds. So I love hearing those every year. Many of the warblers, and of course, I love, it's just my backyard birds, Carolina wrens, eastern bluebirds, a lot of the favorites, but all-time favorite to me is that loggerhead shrike's right above my head right here. Thank you, Lisa. I love you guys too. I mean, like I said, this has been so much more rewarding and fun. And yeah, we started these things. I didn't know what to expect, but you guys are great supporters.
And keep the ideas and stuff coming.
Yeah. Thank you, James. I mean, again, like Melanie just said, I don't know if you could hear her off there, but she's like, keep the ideas coming, because I mean, I tell you, I'm starting to recycle some older videos that that need to be redone and stuff. But God, there's so many topics. There's so many things. And here's what I've noticed. You guys have input here. When I do videos about backyard bird feeding, what bird seed to choose, what feeder is good, those do really, really well. But when I do a one on migration, it's a more specialized topic and fewer people watch it. It doesn't get the views that these other ones do. But I think it's so important to do these things, to teach you guys more about, other than just what bird, what eats, what seed, so that you learn more about it. And of course, I always encourage you, I want you to get out and explore that natural world. Stan Tequila and I were talking about this so much in his live with me. And that is, to get out past your backyard and explore the Wyandotte County Lake and whatever refuges you have near you. It's so important. You gain such an appreciation for the natural world as a whole. All right, we got to get through here.
Yep, and
I'll tell you, Ellie's favorite. Okay, you guys don't know Ellie. Ellie's favorite. We call her the Purple Lady. Her favorite color is purple. And her car is purple. Her walking stick has purple on it when she comes in the store, and she has purple streaks in her hair. But that woman loves red too, because cardinals are easily her favorite bird. I can tell you, she has so many of them visit her and her apartment. And I guess she's a great example. People are like, well, I live in an apartment, I can't attract birds. Well, tell it to Ellie, because she has tons of birds visiting. I do. I feed NutriSaf 365 days a year, Rick. I believe in it wholeheartedly. It's a great problem-solving seed, but it's also more nutritious than regular safflower.
Okay, we got like 5 minutes, and we need to tell them about the Bluebirdie book.
Oh gosh, yeah. Again, the producer doing her job over here.
And I'm going to post about it.
All right. So one of the things that we launched today or yesterday, really, is I have an ebook about bluebirds I don't mean a Scott Weidensaul book. This is just a 10-page, like a 10-page little of information on bluebirds. And then I obviously it's the questions I get most often. And Melanie is going to put a link up there to it.
I just posted it, and it's $2.99.
$2.99.
And then once you check out on the website, it should email you the link.
Okay.
And so if anybody has any problems, they need to email me.
So it's something new we're trying, another avenue to try to provide information for you, and information you can trust. So if you're interested in that, Melanie's got the link here. We'll get to it in just a second. So, all right, let's see. A couple of weeks ago, I was waiting for robins to return, and out of nowhere, a swarm with them marching on. Yeah, that's a migration. That's our migration flock that fell out. Probably had migrated all night the night before, and those flocks stick together during the day until they start separating out and they're claiming territories. Yeah, old and dumb. My backyard birds, the best winner of all recommendations you made on your channel. Thank you. That is really good to know. And we had I don't know exactly where you are, but we had a very stressful winter. And I can tell you, you guys made a difference in life and death for a lot of birds this winter, especially through this middle part of the country where we had so much snow and cold temperatures in January and February. So thank you for following my advice. I'm glad that it worked for you, and I'm glad you were able to enjoy them. I just had to put up an upside down feeder. Oh, it works great. And keeping the starlings off. Thank you, Jeff. I truly believe in them. I know they are not 100%, but they slow the heck the starlings down. I had to sold one today or this weekend, and she just got it today, and she's asking me that advice. As how do you get them to find it? And so I was trying to help her get the birds to find it. Carrie takes good care of everybody. Yeah, you place an order, it's well packaged, and and she throws goodies in there too. James is a very dedicated supporter of the online store. Thank you, James. Our friend Lisa McKay and I are planning to go to Point Pelee in a few weeks. You're just trying to make me jealous for the spring migration. Have you ever gone to Point Pelee? I have not, but Ruth has. And I don't know if Ruth's on or not. I haven't seen her join in, but Ruth and I have been friends for over 30 years and bird watched together all the time and done breeding bird surveys together. With her and a couple of her friends, they went to Point Pelee several years ago, spent a couple of nights up there and birded and raved about how wonderful it was. The closest I've come to Point Pelee was Presque Isle State Park in Pennsylvania, and it's kind of this side of the lake effect of the Point Pelee, and that is the birds get to the lake edge and Lake Erie there, and Presque Isle kind of sticks out into the lake. Well, a lot of these birds will gather. They're reluctant to make that jump over the lake. And so I've been bird watching there when there were hundreds and thousands of birds there. And I talk about, 300 Blackburnian warblers that day. And some of them this close. It's amazing. So Maggie Marsh in Ohio, famous migration flight like that. That's what happens. These birds, they know their limits, and when they get to a big body of water they can't see across it, they're like, no, I need to eat a few more bugs. And so they feed, and then a good wind comes to up from the south behind them and it pushes them across. Well, you guys at Point Pelee are on the other side where they're going, oh, where's land? I've been flying, and that Point Pelee sticks out into the lake, and they might gravitate toward that, and you get there whenever they're landing. It's some of the spectacles of nature, absolutely. Still no bluebirds in sight. Those black cap, I tell you, when those chickadees will claim those boxes earlier, they get started a little earlier than the bluebirds, and so sometimes the bluebirds will come in and run them out, but you got to let those chickadees have that box, and and remember, those bluebirds will nest 3 times in your area likely. So if you don't get them now, you may get them in June, or you may get them in August. So don't give up for this season. Hopefully they'll find it. I mean, it took 3 years at my old house before they found and successfully nested. Rose-breasted grosbeaks, they're hardwood nest, mixed hardwoods. We don't have a ton of them nesting in our area. I know, I've been up in Wisconsin during the nesting season. They were everywhere, nesting up there. So I'm not sure because you're out in the Piedmont, and so maybe up in a little bit higher elevation, you may have better luck with them nesting right there, Rick. Yeah, that's a good question.
We're going to go over an hour, so.
All right.
But go ahead. You got lots
of my windows. We got lots of questions. We got to keep going.
Well,
Melanie needs to do a cameo and pop on the so she should, but she's camera shy. She always has been. I could do like this and cheat and point the camera. Get her hiding behind her sweatshirt there. Yeah, she's definitely been camera shy, but she does all the hard work. So that Arizona, I appreciate your videos about yellow rumble starting. Couldn't figure out what the tiny bird was. I had to pick. Absolutely, yeah.
So picking wool nesting.
I don't. Yeah, eating pig. They nest. The Audubon's race nest in your area for sure. And my guess is probably up in elevation. There is where you're going to most likely find them nesting up in your part of the woods, because they like the evergreen forest. And I know in Arizona up in those Sky Islands, the higher elevations on those mountains, they get into more of a boreal forest type scenario, pines and stuff. So that's where I'm sure you'll probably find them. I'm going to take down my Eat a Bird Bath connection then yesterday. Yep, that's what happens. We always have these late spring stretches of weather, so I typically don't unplug mine till the end of April before I'll unplug mine for sure.
I posted the water wiggler in case anybody know what you were talking about. Yeah,
Melanie, that's a link to the water wiggler, which agitates the water surface. It's battery. You don't have to have electricity to it, and it's a really good compromise for having moving water, especially during migration and things. A little water wiggler. Today was opening day for the Reds too. Yep, yeah, opening day a lot across the country. My first tree reader out with mealworms, bluebirds came and feasted on the meal. Absolutely, first time. Yeah, I'm telling you, those mealworms. Now, were they dried mealworms or were they live mealworms, Karen? Live mealworms are better, of course, during the nesting season, which is going on now. But if you do dried mealworms during the nesting season, what did we call? What am I, the water warrior or the water captain or something they got going on our last live? But you want to make sure you have a source of clean, open water if you're feeding dried mealworms, because they need that extra hydration, because the dried mealworms are obviously dried out. So, all right. Solar USB homemade fountains, tons of finches go for it. Excellent. Yep. The solar stuff, it's a mixed bag, man. If some clouds come up and wow, it stops working usually. Mark Becker. I do not know the answer to that. I would think so. It would be my belief. Absolutely. At least one. Rosy finches. Oh gosh, that's great. So how are you? Oh, razor face lovebird. So you got an escape cage bird out there. Facebook here. Would you love to?
Would love to share pictures.
Absolutely. Like they mark at backyardbirdcenter.com.
Yeah.
And the best way to get those to me, and I'm telling you, I keep detailed folders for people when they send them in, and I always give you photo credit in any way I use it. Yep. All right, we're winding down. I expect to see with the next. Yep, you up your way. They're headed back, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Discover the brown thrasher. The brown thrashers have like 3,000 different vocalizations they can make. Jennifer, they are their ultimate songbird. That's for sure.
It's hard to have a favorite.
It is hard to have a favorite. You're right. Yep. Bunch of plants right now. Great. I mean, native plants produce caterpillars, which produce baby birds. I can tell you. So important. Cardinal o'clock. Yeah. I got you. There's the ebook connection there. If you're interested in that. Wow. You don't usually see Arctic terns over the middle part of the country. They're accidental. There are a lot of terns, but the Arctic terns usually are to the far north, and they spend their time out over the ocean. So the interiorly Arctic terns are quite rare. So it may be a Forster's tern. Maybe you look that up and see that might be what you're seeing.
She's talking to James.
Okay. I'm good. All right.
Oh, and that was if they have any ideas, let me know.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. And we'll be on in a couple more weeks. I've got some programs coming up. And I just keep sending in those ideas. Like I said, this one was totally inspired by 2 different emails from the regular watchers. And so I hope I addressed most of the questions, and you guys, you can always send me questions. If I didn't, if there's something I missed that you want to know more about, let me know, because, I teaching you guys in teaching period is what I live for. Absolutely. So thanks so much for tuning in. Give us a like, give us a share. If you haven't subscribed, please do. That's my classic. Thank you for the comments on the intro video. I'm glad you liked it. Until next time, let's talk birds.